Jiu-jitsu, a brutal mix of chokes, locks, and scrambles. And some quiet guy from New Zealand rewrites the whole thing. Not a fighter, not even from Brazil. Just a philosophy student from Columbia University with a bad leg and a sharp mind. Sounds fake, right? But it's real. This is the story of John Danaher. He didn't just learn jiu-jitsu, he broke it down like a math problem, rebuilt it piece by piece, and created a system that changed the game. And the craziest part? He trained the killers who now rule the sport. So how did a guy with no championships flip the entire jiu-jitsu world on its head? John Danaher. If you're around grappling, you've heard the name. It's almost legendary, whispered with a kind of awe when people talk about Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He's that quiet, serious guy you see in the corner of champions, the brain behind the infamous Danaher Death Squad. His instructional videos? They vanish quicker than front row seats to a rock concert. But what's behind all that mystique? It's more than just legend. There's a carefully built philosophy, a super analytical way of looking at things that hasn't just shot his students to the top of BJJ, but has sent massive waves through the whole art. We're not just going to talk about moves today. We're digging into the fundamental ideas, the systematic brilliance, and the non-stop chase for real understanding that explains Danaher's game-changing effect on jiu-jitsu. How does a philosophy guy become the world's most in-demand grappling coach? Honestly, the real story is wilder than anything you could make up. Section 1. The Philosopher's Stone, Forging a New Approach. John Danaher's path to becoming a jiu-jitsu guru? It definitely wasn't the usual route. He was born in New Zealand, and his studies took him all the way to Columbia University in New York City for a master's in philosophy. While he was there, working as a bouncer to pay the bills, he saw firsthand just how effective jiu-jitsu could be. Now, Danaher wasn't some natural athletic superstar. He had some pretty bad injuries, a really wrecked knee, for example, that needed major surgery, so he couldn't just muscle his way through things. That obstacle, funny enough, turned out to be the foundation of his brilliance. He had to figure out a different way, a path to make jiu-jitsu click using his brain and a super deep understanding of how it all worked mechanically. And that philosophy background? He didn't just leave it in the classroom, he brought it right onto the mats. Danaher looked at jiu-jitsu not just as a bunch of moves, but as this intricate web of problems and solutions, almost like a language he had to master down to the smallest detail. He started training under the legendary Renzo Gracie, diving headfirst into the art. But even while he was learning, he was also breaking things down, analyzing, always searching for a deeper, more basic understanding than what most people were looking for back then. He wasn't satisfied just knowing that a technique worked. He had to know why it worked, exactly when it worked, and what core principles made it successful. It was this constant questioning, this blend of a philosopher's brain and a grappler's heart, that really started to shape his unique way of coaching. He started seeing jiu-jitsu less as a random collection of techniques and more as this interconnected system, all run by universal ideas like leverage, control, and timing. Section 2. The Danaher Doctrine, Systems, Concepts, and Clarity. So, what's the real game changer in Danaher's coaching? It's all about his systematic and concept-based teaching. He figured out pretty quickly that just showing someone a move, or even a few moves in a row, wasn't the best way to get it to stick. Our brains, as he saw it, just hold on to information better when it's organized logically. This is where his famous systems come in. Whether he's teaching how to pass guard, get a submission, or hold someone down, Danaher doesn't just throw isolated techniques at you. He gives you these complete, interconnected systems where every piece works with the others. Think about learning a language. Knowing a few random words isn't that helpful, right? But if you understand the grammar and how to build sentences, you can say anything. Danaher basically gave his students the grammar of jiu-jitsu. And these systems? They're built on a solid foundation of core principles. Instead of making people memorize stuff by heart, he gets them to understand the basic ideas, like how control really works, how to break someone's posture, or how to put your opponent in a no-win situation. This kind of deep understanding means students can adapt, come up with new things, and solve problems on the fly, not just try to remember a sequence they drilled. One thing you'll notice about his teaching is his incredibly precise language. He gets that if things are fuzzy, learning suffers. So Danaher often uses very specific, sometimes even unique, words for positions, movements, and ideas. This makes sure everyone's crystal clear on what he's talking about. This careful wording, probably from his philosophy days, just cuts through the vague instructions you sometimes get in martial arts. It's all about having a shared, exact vocabulary so people can learn faster and understand things more deeply. He's also a big believer in what you might call the power of steady progress. Danaher is convinced that you can get amazing results with consistent small improvements, no matter how naturally talented you are to begin with. His training methods show this. He builds skills bit by bit, encouraging his students to just keep at it and to see setbacks not as failures, but as important bits of information in their learning journey. This really builds a mindset of growth, which you absolutely need for the long haul in a tough discipline like jiu-jitsu. And in his training rooms, there's a real culture of control. Yeah, the ultimate goal might be to get a submission, but in day-to-day training, the main focus is often on developing technique and control. This helps keep injuries down and creates a safe place for people to experiment and really practice deliberately. This controlled setting lets you sharpen your technique without the constant stress of super intense, ego-fueled sparring that can actually get in the way of learning real skills. Section 3. Engineering Dominance, the Systems in Action. If you want a perfect example of Danaher's impact, look no further than how he completely changed the leg lock game. Seriously. Before Danaher dug into lower body submissions, systematically taking them apart and then rebuilding them, leg locks were kind of a niche thing. Some folks in traditional BJJ circles even looked down on them, thinking they were too risky or not as pure as chokes and arm bars. Danaher tackled leg attacks with the same super analytical mindset he used for everything else in jiu-jitsu. He didn't just learn a few heel hooks and toe holds. No, he built an entire deeply connected system around attacking the legs, how to get into position, how to control someone, the mechanics of finishing, and even how to defend. He classified the positions, gave names to key control points. You've probably heard of Ashigarami variations or inside senkaku, and spelled out the biomechanics that made these submissions so incredibly effective. Then, he and his students, the crew that became known as the Danaher Death Squad, unleashed these super polished systems on the competition scene. And wow, the results were instant and huge. Guys like Gordon Ryan, Gary Tonon, Eddie Cummings, and Nicky Ryan started running through opponents, finishing fights with leg locks that looked like they came from nowhere, but were actually the result of incredibly well understood and drilled sequences. This made the entire grappling world sit up and take notice. Suddenly, knowing leg lock defense wasn't just a good idea, it was essential for survival. But Danaher's genius isn't just about leg locks. He's used his systematic way of thinking on all the key areas of jiu-jitsu. His back attack systems, they're famous for their layers of control that lead to chokes that feel impossible to escape. He really stresses not just taking the back, but keeping it and tightening control with a clear order of grips and body positions. Once he teaches you how to take the back his way, the submission feels almost guaranteed. His guard passing systems are all about taking apart your opponent's defenses piece by piece, using concepts of posture, base, and pressure to get through even the trickiest guards. And it's the same with his approach to pins and escapes. It's all built on basic principles of how to use your weight, leverage, and kuzushi. That's unbalancing your opponent, turning what look like stuck positions into active fights for control and a chance to advance. This systematic way of looking at every major fight in jiu-jitsu gives his students a clear, complete game plan. It lets them smoothly connect their attacks and defenses. Section 4. The Proof in the Pudding, a Legacy of Champions. Does John Danaher's coaching philosophy actually work? Well, the proof isn't just theory. It's written all over the record books and shown by how dominant his students have been. The Danaher Death Squad, or DDS, became one of the most feared names in no-gi grappling. Its members consistently won at the very top levels, including multiple ADCC World Championships, which is basically the Olympics for submission grappling. Take Gordon Ryan. Under Danaher's guidance, he became what many consider the greatest no-gi grappler ever. Watching him compete was like seeing Danaher's systems applied with surgical precision. Gary Tonon, another key member, became a huge star in both grappling and pro MMA, famous for his explosive style and deadly submissions, all sharpened by Danaher. And it wasn't just one or two stars. A whole stream of incredible athletes came out of Danaher's blue-matted room in New York and later from his gyms in Puerto Rico and Austin. All of them showed an incredibly deep and systematic grasp of jiu-jitsu. And it wasn't just in the submission grappling world. Danaher's influence reached into mixed martial arts too. He was a BJJ coach for one of the sport's absolute legends, Georges St-Pierre. He helped GSP fine-tune his grappling, playing a part in his legendary runs as UFC welterweight and middleweight champion. GSP himself has often talked about how much Danaher changed his whole understanding of fighting. This steady stream of top-tier talent really shows how powerful his methods are. He doesn't just churn out athletes who are good at a few moves. He creates athletes who get the core principles of jiu-jitsu so deeply that they can adjust, create, and dominate, no matter the rules or who they're up against. His students aren't just known for winning, but for how they win, with pinpoint technical skill, deep strategy, and this feeling that their victory is almost inevitable. In Danaher's world, training is all about getting better, not just about winning in the gym. Losing or struggling in training, that's just valuable feedback, with the real goal being to perform at your best when it actually matters, in competition. Section 5. Reshaping the art. Danaher's enduring influence. John Danaher's influence goes way beyond just the wins of the people he directly coached. He's completely changed how jiu-jitsu is taught, learned, and even thought about all over the world. His instructional videos, those super long, incredibly detailed ones, have pretty much become the gold standard in the BJJ world. Through these online seminars, his systematic way of breaking down leg locks, back attacks, front headlocks, guard retention, and so much more has spread to grapplers everywhere, affecting coaches and students at every level. He's also really raised the level of conversation around jiu-jitsu. By always hammering home principles, conceptual understanding, and using exact language, Danaher has pushed a whole generation of grapplers to think harder and more deeply about how they train. He's shown that jiu-jitsu isn't just a physical thing, it's a mental game too, like a complex puzzle you have to solve. This idea that there's a real philosophy to it has really clicked with people in the community. It's inspired so many to stop just collecting techniques and instead try to get a more complete, principle-based understanding of the art. And Danaher's own story, coaching at the highest level even with his own serious injuries, is pretty inspiring stuff. It really highlights his belief that if you approach jiu-jitsu the right way, anyone can get really good through smarts, hard work, and a systematic approach, no matter how athletic they are naturally. He's proven that good strategy and technique really can beat brute strength and speed. You can see this Danaher effect everywhere in how today's grapplers train, what positions and submissions they focus on, especially in no-gi, and just the general rise in how technical and systematic the sport has become. He didn't just teach jiu-jitsu, he gave everyone a new way to understand it. John Danaher didn't just make champions. He lifted the whole understanding of jiu-jitsu itself, leaving a permanent mark on how it continues to grow. His legacy isn't just about the medals his students won, but about the minds he helped sharpen and the art he helped push forward. John Danaher's approach really shows how powerful thinking things through and learning systematically can be, even in something as fast-moving as jiu-jitsu. What part of his philosophy do you think is the most game-changing? Maybe you've even tried to bring some of his ideas into your own training. And hey, if you want more deep dives into the people who are shaping martial arts, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more.